I worked at a pizza place in the Midwest when I was a teenager. And I went to New York when I was 16, and I saw pizza by the slice. And I'd never seen that before. Because we didn't make pizza by the slice in the Midwest. There weren't enough people around. You had to know who wanted pizza before you made some pizza. In New York, you could make a pizza. And the chance that any given person walking down the street will want a slice of your pizza is about this big. But New York is about this big. So this much of a chance times this much population means that the improbable people show up. Wikipedia is the pizza by the slice principle writ large. Right? The improbable individuals, the people who make these articles good, show up over and over and over again, even when people can't know in advance who they are. Here's another example. This one much more directly related to the world of business, because this isn't an either-or proposition. This is really a question of hybridization. This is Howard Forums. Howard Forums is the go-to site for cell phone geeks, for mobile phone geeks. And Howard Forums is Howard Forums for the same reason that Craigslist is Craigslist, which is it was started by Howard. Howard Chewy was blogging about mobile phones in 2000, when not many people were blogging, and of the people blogging, not many were blogging about mobile phones. And so other people started to find his blog and come in and ask questions. Right? Oh, can you tell me how to do this thing? I've got a Samsung phone and I'm doing it on the Verizon network. And Howard would always say, I don't have that phone, I'm not using that network, I can't answer your question. But the questions kept coming because people wanted this information. And so he had the inspired thought to say, I can't help you people, but you can help each other. Here's a bulletin board, go talk to each other. Right? Because I can't deal with you. I'll just set myself up as the moderator. So this is how it forms. It's going to do 1 billion page views this year, with a paid staff of 2. Right? And it's broken down one collection of conversations for every carrier, tens of thousands of posts, hundreds of thousands of responses. Right? And it gets pretty geeky in there. There's a post on how to put a custom ringtone on a Samsung T509, which does a shot-by-shot screenshot of this is exactly how you do it. You wish Samsung would give you instructions this good, right? But it's the amateur stuff that actually looks like it was made by professionals. Howard Forums has gotten so good that engineers inside carriers and mobile phone handset manufacturers will sometimes send their own customers to Howard Forums to have their questions answered. So that seems crazy. What can a bunch of amateurs have that trained engineers inside technology companies don't have? And the amateurs here have the same thing we all have, which is we have access to reality. We're the only people living out in the real world where we're trying to make this phone do that thing on that network. No one can model the full complexity of the world inside one organization. And so by aggregating what everybody on Howard Forums knows, right, one customer knows much less than one engineer, but many customers know much more. And it is that ability, again, new to our historical generation, to do that kind of aggregate. Now, custom Samsung T509 instructions isn't the only thing that happens on Howard Forum. There's also a sort of collection of miscellaneous, a MISC bulletin board, including post pictures of your pets, right? So you get stuff like this. Oh, cute. Took a picture of my cat with my camera phone, and now I want to share it with my friends. And it's very easy in a business context to figure out how to make Howard Forums better, right? You just want less of this and more of that. But imagine what would happen if Howard himself went in and said, okay, knock it off with the cats. Right? All I want is documentation of putting custom ringtones on your Samsung and things like that. This is about cell phones. Don't talk to each other about anything else. Can you imagine how that would go over? Not so good. Because these people aren't employees. Right? The cats and the instructions actually come from the same motivation. which is here. I've got something I want to share with you. I think you'll like it. And that motivation, the human motivation to do things on your own, is the thing that's driving Howard Forums. Howard Forums would be worse if they got rid of the pictures of the cute cats. Now this flies in the face of a lot of what we believe about motivation. Right? A lot of what we believe about motivation is that motivation is additive. People can simply be motivated to do things in all kinds of ways, and all we need to do is add up enough motivation that they'll be willing to do it. But that's not actually how humans work. And the first real piece of evidence that this was going to be, that the world of motivation was actually going to be subdivided, came about as a result of this. This is a toy called Soma. It's a wooden block. As you can see, it's 3 squares on an edge. And it disassembles into these 7 pieces, right, which have characteristic shapes, unique shapes. There's one and only one way it can assemble back into a cube. And you can also use the shape to build a bunch of other combinations. And in 1970, a guy named Ed Deasy took this cube, and he took 24 undergraduates, and one at a time he brought them into a room and said, I'm going to give you a Soma cube, and I'm going to give you some of these diagrams, and I want to see how many of these shapes you can make in the next hour. So the undergraduates were working away on the shapes, trying to assemble them. And Deasy was making a great show of taking notes. And then he'd say at the end, okay, that was great, thanks. Just wait here. I got to go in my office and enter some stuff in the computer. I'll be right back. And the students thought the experiment had ended, but in fact it had just begun. Deasy would leave the room, go behind a one-way mirror, and watch the students for exactly 8 minutes. And he wanted to see, were they going to keep playing with the cubes? And on average, for about 4 of the 8 minutes, they kept playing with the cubes. They'd gotten interested in it, and they found it engaging to play with the cube. So the next week, same students, same experiment, absolutely identical with one change. 12 of those 24 undergraduates were paid to make the cubes. I'll give you $1 for every shape you can make. And this is back when $1 actually meant something to a college student. And lo and behold, the people who were being paid worked more on the cubes during the break, right? Because they now saw the cubes as a source of income. And if I get better at this, I can earn some money. Third week, Deasy runs exactly the same experiment, same students, again, and again, like the first week, nobody's getting paid. The group of people who'd never been paid kept playing with the cubes. The group of people who'd been paid the previous week stopped playing with the cubes. Having been paid, they'd lost interest in the activity in and of itself. In fact, the amount of time they spent on the cubes, playing with the cubes on their own, fell by twice as much as it had gone up when they're paid. So Deasy was the first person to say, intrinsic motivations, things we're doing for the love of it, are different from extrinsic motivations. Different from being paid, different from this is my job, different from my boss says I have to do this. And in 1970, this was a shock. Right? In the psychological world, the thought was, people do things for motivations, and those motivations are additive. So if someone likes an activity and also you pay them to do it, that'll just be even better. What Deasy said is no. Intrinsic motivations and extrinsic motivations are different, and if you add extrinsic motivations to something people like doing, they actually like it less. So one of the things we're seeing as we see this rise of amateur participation in the media landscape is that there's a difference between the Howard Forums model of people doing things out of a sense of autonomy and competence, they're good at it, and also of membership and generosity, of liking to share in social situations, that cannot be trivially converted to commercial models.